welcome to another installment of Metallic Reviews, the show where I take an honest look at the harder, heavier side of music and give it an honest rating. As you can see, we are back in our regular digs, and speaking of familiarity, we're going to be remaining right where we are in terms of our musical reviews on here. We're going to be remaining in that inner, stanky, rank bowels of the American deathcore scene to examine an album by a band that, while not quite as chug-heavy as Suicide Silence from last week, still follow a little bit of the same musical framework. Not only that, but this is album number 2 of a double release that was begun last November. Yes, it's Chelsea Grin and their new one, Suffer in Heaven, released March 17th on 1 RPM. Again, this is less of a record label as much as it is a digital release online-based entity. That's the best way I can think of to describe that. But in any case, I reviewed the first part of this album, Suffer in Hell, and gave it a staunch 4 out of 5. Now it's time to dive into the second part. So let's jump right in. First off, this is a perfect extension of what Suffer in Hell was. It's heavy, it's atmospheric, and it suffocates in just the right way. Instrumentally, this is, again, structured in much the same way. They do drop a little bit of the prettier, more audibly and aesthetically pleasing elements, and they really double down on the more metallic elements of their music. This is deathcore leaning heavily towards the death, and there are no frills about it. While the first album focused more on setting the tone for this release, this feels kind of like the payoff to the whole sick, deranged, fearless operation. There's also a slickness to this band that doesn't really apply in a lot of areas of deathcore. In a lot of ways, they can be a little bit grimy. This one it's grimy, but it's not grimy in the same way. Now, I appreciate that, as it shows that the pillars of the genre can be willing to incorporate a little more modern sensibility into their songs. Last week, we heard our first deathcore release of the year, put out by fellow genre mainstays, against Suicide Silence. If that was what happened if an angsty teen was given the literature of Nietzsche in a full ride to unleash all the nihilism and self-loathing they wanted, then this is what would happen if a sensible adult were given books on self-help, video games, and nerd culture and told to go write the heaviest, most punishing deathcore possible. Yeah, there's a song about Dark Souls on here, so that's kind of what you're getting. Even through that, though, there are these absolutely amazing glimpses of what the genre can be when taken to another musical level. That's one of the massive positives of this record. I put this up against Suicide Silence from last week. There's no comparison. This album is leaps and bounds ahead of the other one. These guys do twice what Suicide Silence did, and they had 20 fewer minutes. Production-wise, this continues to have that same full, punchy, completely excellent, thunderous structure. I give a lot of credit to producer Jeff Dunn, who returns for this effort and once again puts forward a brilliant bit of mixing. Now, I did a little digging and found out that he's actually had a hand in a lot of recent projects by some fairly big names. Aside from Chelsea Grin, he's worked with guys like Silent Planet, Fit for a King, Amur, and Motionless in White. But the thing that caught my eye was that he was responsible for the mixing and mastering of one of my most favorite recent metalcore releases, Manic by Wage War. No wonder Suffer in Heaven sounded so crisp and excellent. In terms of songwriting, Chelsea Grin don't stray too far from their ways. They also continue to press forward in their rather unique deathcore-centric Gojira/Fit for an Autopsy worship. Now, this isn't bad at all. However, the thing I find a little disappointing here is that they actually pull back on it a little bit. Suffer in Hell had this excellent backdrop of atmospherics that weaved its way throughout the album. Suffer in Heaven is kind of in the same boat, but here and there they do kind of lean into the deathcore just a little too much, and they kind of go out of balance. It's still good, but it's not quite as good as Suffer in Hell did it, and that's very, very small details. This is still a great album, very much on the level of Suffer in Hell. I did enjoy Suffer in Hell just a tiny bit more, just a wee bit more. That being said, Chelsea Grin have put out an excellent continuation of their November release. It's got all the hallmarks of a good deathcore record, topped off by a bit of personality not present on other genre outings. Through guitar solos, slides, and a penchant for riding around the riff and not the breakdown, Chelsea Grin have a record here that's worth listening to. It may not make Album of the Year this year, but it's still definitely worth a spin. I'm giving it the same score as its sister record, a 4 out of 5. Thank you so much for watching. Go ahead and click like. Please subscribe. Trying to bump the subscriber count up over 50. Next week, we're taking a massive swing away from deathcore and heading down the progressive extreme death metal route as we examine Australian exports Ne Obliviscaris' new album Exile. I hope you join me. You've been watching Metallic Reviews, where I give honest ratings to honest music, and I will see y'all next time.